As we see peaceful mass demonstrations taking place all over Southern California, doctors are raising concerns that the lack of physical distancing may result in a second wave of COVID-19 infections.
We're joined now by Dr. Nicholas Testa. He's Chief Medical Officer with Dignity Southern California. First off, good morning, Dr. Testa.
Good morning.
So many people might be outside. It's warm, it's hot, they've got the masks on, they're protesting, they're exercising their constitutional right. What are the risks?
So, the risks are everything that we've been really working to prevent for the last 3 months, right? We've all been staying at home. We've all been sheltering in place. And if you look at what's going on, we see the exact opposite. Now, listen, we can't stop it and we shouldn't try and stop it. What's happening right now needs to happen. But just like everything else, we got to do it a little bit differently. So, I like seeing people with the masks. I get concerned when I see a lot of people without masks, because as soon as one person takes the mask off, then the next person and more people start to do it, and the behavior becomes normalized. We need to, wear gloves and try and give ourselves space and do it a little bit differently than maybe we would have done it before.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that these gatherings, these protests, peaceful protests, could be considered super spreader events. And if so, can you describe more what public health officials mean by that term?
Yeah, so the super spreader event. So, when we talk about the spread of coronavirus, the classic example is one individual with coronavirus usually spreads it to 1 or 2 or 3 other individuals. That's been the number, or the R naught as we call it. With a super spreader event, you have one individual spreading it to 10 or 20 individuals. We saw this happen early on in South Korea. We saw it happen in a couple other areas of the country. We saw it up in New Rochelle at a party. So these could very quickly evolve into super spreader events. We have something in place now, right, that actually can really help us, which is we have copious testing available thanks to LA City and LA County. So for those people who are going out and protesting, if you've been out there, there's a good chance you could have been exposed. So take this opportunity to go to one of those LA County or LA City sites and get yourself tested.
So how does that, when, let's say, for instance, you get that test, shows up negative, does that mean for sure that you're negative, or does it mean you need to test again in a few days to show that you haven't gotten it there,
Yeah, you have to use your good judgment, right? So it takes a couple of days for the test to convert positive. It can be variable, but you get tested negative and you take that as a negative test. If you develop symptoms, I would go get retested again. I don't think you need to get serial tests once you're negative unless you have further exposure. So if you're going out to a protest every day, you may find yourself driving to go get tested a lot more than others. But that's the risk of exposing yourselves. But that's also, what our society needs right now.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the reason you want to be tested to find out whether or not you're positive or negative is to then quarantine, correct? Self-isolate?
Exactly. The rules of the game are still the same, right? Prevention is going to be based on self-isolation. So if you test positive, whether you have symptoms or not, you're going to need to self-quarantine for 14 days. And we need to, that's going to be part of our society until we find a vaccine for this.
And I think it's also important to remind folks, 211, if you don't have a healthcare provider that can refer you to a test site, call 211 and one can be arranged for you, correct?
It's a great point. It's a great point. And the other thing too is, and I did it just yesterday, for preparation for this, just go online and search COVID-19 tests Los Angeles. And literally the first thing that comes up on any search engine are where are the test sites located. It's pretty easy right now.
Okay. Dr. Testa, thanks again. And I think it's important. You also pointed out to us, you want to see these protests and you think it's important right now. We're just trying to make sure that everybody stays safe in the process.
Like I said, we have to do everything a little bit differently moving forward, and that's going to apply to everything we do in life. And this is just another example of how we'll have to do protests and exercising our freedom of speech a little bit differently.
Yeah, and keep wearing those masks while we do it. Thank you again, Dr. Testa. Thanks for joining us. All right, President, thank you.